Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I of course want to start off by giving all praise unto Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Yahweh, which is the name of the Most High, and Yahushai, which is the name of the only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Anyway, this is going to be a video dealing with, whether or not the laws were done away with, man, because, today you have, these churches, man, like say for an example, man, if you go to, the potluck that they have after, the church service at, say let's say the Catholics, church or, one of like nature, hey, you can't have, the Christian get together without somebody bringing the, the pork, right? Without somebody bringing the ham, which is clearly against the scriptures. And that's in, the book of Leviticus, the 11th chapter, right? Leviticus chapter 11, right? It says that you're not supposed to be eating those foods. Okay, but today, they say that, that was all done away with, right? That we can now eat whatever we want. Well, if that's the case, right? Because they say that the law is done away with. Well, if that's the case, then by logic, that must imply that, well, first of all, sin must be done away with, because according to 1 John chapter 3 and verse 4, it says that that sin is the transgression of the law. But wait a second, if there is no law to follow, right, because that was done away when Christ came, according to them, well, then by logic, that means there cannot be sin. Because, again, 1 John chapter 3 and verse 4, for sin is the transgression of the law. Right, so if there is no law, then by logic and by default, there is no sin. Therefore, by that same line of reasoning, you can do whatever you want today. You can be a homosexual. You can, you can murder people. You can, you can eat whatever you want. Or you can follow other gods if you want. According to these guys, that's what they have to be saying then. Because if there's no law, well, then you don't have to follow it then. And there's also no sin then, according to that, by logic, going according to the scriptures, off of their interpretation. That's what they must be saying. Anyway, what I do want to get first is I made a mention of, they're teaching that, you can eat whatever food you want, right? That, Christ came, to make all foods clean, right? Which we're going to deal with that too. But just real quick, I wanted to get a verse that I found actually to be pretty interesting, because this is speaking about when Jesus Christ, who they call Christ, what we call Yahushai, when he returns, he's going to, be putting a lot of people to death, man. Okay, but there's a verse here that's very interesting. Bear with me a second. All right, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 66, and we'll start at verse 15, but the point is in verse 17, but for the context, we'll start above. It says, "For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse, shall be consumed together, says the Lord." Right, so there we go. We have a verse that is clearly condemning those who eat the, say for example, right, the swine's flesh, which is pork. It mentions the mouse, and it also mentions the abomination, which gives, the list of foods that you're not supposed to eat in Leviticus, the 11th chapter. If anybody wants to go and, read that for yourself. Okay, so just off the start there, that's a prophecy of when Christ returns, he's going to do that. So wait a second, why is Christ killing people who are eating unlawful foods then? And I can't see anybody giving me an answer for that. Nobody can answer that for me. All right? Anyway, we're going to go precept upon precept and line upon line. That's how you, get the proper understanding of what the scriptures say according to, Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 10. All right, precept must be upon precept, here a little and there a little. That's how you get the understanding of the scriptures. Or of the scriptures. Inside joke. Anyway, let's go to the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, and verse 8. This says, Yahushai, the same yesterday, today, and forever, right? So Yahushai, who they call Christ, right? He was the same yesterday, today, and forever, right? He doesn't change. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because when you deal with the scriptures, and second of all, these guys teach that Jesus Christ is the Most High. So it's a double whammy then, because wait a second, well, if the Most High don't change, well, then how can you sit there and say that now it's okay to eat the unlawful foods in the scriptures that it says you can't eat them? And again, we don't even have to make this all about the unlawful foods, because wait a second, if you're saying the law's done away with, then that means you can go murder people, then that means you can be a homosexual. Okay, they're saying that all the laws are done away with. And again, by logic, if that's the case, well, according to, as I said, 1 John chapter 3 and verse 4, it says that sin is the transgression of the law. So if there is no law that needs to be followed, well, then by logic and by default, there cannot be sin. Sin cannot exist, because, as we said, by the very definition, sin is a transgression of the law. All right. Let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 17, which, it's ironic, by the way, the Bible that I have, one of them that I have that I'm reading out of, I actually found this at I was doing a house clean out, right? I was doing the house clean out at my job, and this was laying there, so I decided to keep it, for my own, because it was in decent condition and whatnot. But anyway, the funny thing is, the verse that I'm going to read here, the person before me, right, who owned it before me, they also have it here underlined, right? So see, this is a popular verse, man, right, to disprove the this teaching, okay, because this is the words of Christ himself right here. Okay, Christ is going to say that I have not come to do away with the law. Okay, this is the book of Matthew chapter 5 and verse 17. Think not that and this is Christ speaking, right, Yahushai. It says, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I come not to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Listen here. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men to do so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Right, so we're out here telling you what? We're out here telling you to follow the laws to the best of your ability, man. All right, if you can grow a beard, you are to grow a beard, man. All right, stay away from, those unlawful foods, man. Okay, don't be dealing with another man's wife, because that's, big thing amongst our people, right? Matter of fact, here in America, right, Babylon the Great, that's something to boast about. Matter of fact, there's certain, websites that you can go to, online, man, where you can, basically they're set up to where you can, meet with local, married women when their, husbands are away. And you can just look that up, right? That's true. Okay, that's what they have going on here, but that's a sin unto death according to the scriptures. That's called adultery. If you did that back in ancient Israel, you get your ass stoned to death for, for doing that, because that's a sin unto death right there, to deal with another man's wife. That's a sin unto death according to the scriptures. But here in America, you're allowed to do those things. In fact, that's encouraged to do. That's looked at as a light thing. Right, that's why all of these, well, not all of them, but a lot of these, rapping songs and, higher up, popular songs in the society are all about what? Drugs, violence, and, getting another man's woman. That's what they're all about. Why? Because that's what America, also known as Babylon the Great, pushes throughout the world. And that goes into, that was actually a video I was thinking of doing, right? The inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk off of the wine of her fornication, which the wine of her fornication is her philosophies and her ways of life. Okay, when you deal with the scriptures, when it speaks about wine, is the vast majority of the time, depending on the context that it's used in. It can mean a physical, wine beverage, or it can mean a philosophy. Depends on the context that the word is used in. Anyway, let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 15. Bear with me a second. All right, this is a good one, because what these guys like to do, which I did a debate with Ridge Napper, and I asked him about this, and he said that it's not that which goes into the belly that defiles a man, right? And it's not that which goes into your mouth that defiles you, but it's that which comes out. And they use that to say, well, see, you can eat what you want, and you'll be fine. It's like, okay, then, well, what about what would happen to somebody who, because these guys are saying you can eat whatever you want, right? It's like, okay, then, well, what happens to somebody who, let's say, for an example, accidentally swallowed a poisonous substance, right? Or bleach or something like that? What would happen? They'd ended up, if they don't get medical attention, you end up passing away, right? So, just with that being presented, see, you can't, swallow whatever you want. You can't eat whatever you want just off that alone. But then when you deal with the skipjays, clearly, as we went to the words of Christ himself in Matthew, the 5th chapter, the 17th verse, we clearly seen that Christ said, hey, you are to follow these commandments, and if you teach people not to, then you're going to be the least in the kingdom. Okay, because that's a serious thing. But anyway, he's going to deal with, the whole thing about it's not what you eat that defiles you. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 15, and verse 17. Well, let's start actually at verse 16. It says, and Yahushua said, are ye also yet without understanding? Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever enters in at the mouth goes into the belly and is cast out into the draught? But these things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceedeth evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, theft, false witness, and blasphemies. Right, so one will read that, and they'll say, we'll see, that that right there, it just means that you can eat whatever you want, because it said that it's not that which goes into the mouth that defiles the man. So see that you can eat whatever you want, because you said it's, what comes out of you that defiles you. Well, that's not so, because if you read the next verse, right, now we get the context of what he was talking about here. Look at this. Verse 20 says, these are the things that defile a man. Right, so he just addressed, right, the things that come out of your mouth are what defile you, but not that which goes in. But here's the context. But to eat with unwashed hands defiles not a man. So you see, the whole context was not about eating pork and eating unlawful foods. That was not what he was talking about. He was talking about eating with unwashed hands. Okay, so if you even might know it might be gross, but if you used the restroom or worked outside and then you ate without washing your hands, that doesn't defile you, right? So you have germs and dirt on your hand, that goes into your body, but that doesn't defile you. So it wasn't talking about eating unlawful food. It wasn't talking about that, as we can clearly see by the context. Okay, verse 20, we'll read it again. These are the things that defile a man, which was, what we just read. It says, but to eat with unwashed hands defiles not a man. Right, so there you go. Okay, just off that, the whole doctrine has been refuted. All right, I also want to get one more thing, because I think pretty much we've already annihilated this doctrine, man. Okay, you have to follow the laws to the best of your ability, man. And if you don't, wait, then you're going off. Okay, now we all, mess up sometimes and go against the law, of course. And that's where grace comes in. Okay, because what is grace? That means that you can receive forgiveness, for your sins. But with that being said, you are not to willingly go around and do wicked stuff, man. But that's not what you are supposed to be doing. That's going off. That's what, people would do for thousands of years. or in that time of Christ, and especially before then, what they would do is they'll go commit wicked acts, but then they would sacrifice a goat or a lamb or whatever, to the priest. Then they would receive forgiveness for their wrongdoings, right? But Christ came to do away with that. Okay, you can't go out and commit, say for example, you can't go commit adultery and just give a lamb to sacrifice. You can't do that today. That's invalid now. Okay, but before, the time of Christ, going back to the ancient world, talking about, time in Exodus and, even beyond that, even, forward up until, the time of Christ, that's what they would do. They, do what they do. And then, for forgiveness of their, the wrongdoings, they would, take lambs, goats or, doves or, bulls or, whatever it is that they, they could bring, to sacrifice to the priest. They bring it to the priest. The priest will kill it on the altar and they burn it, unto their Lord. All right. And that's how they would be, forgiven for their transgressions, back in those times. Anyway, let's see. I wanted to get one more verse just for the, may I say, the cherry on the top of the cake, for lack of better words. Revelation chapter 14 and verse 12. It says, "Here is the patience and of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of Yahweh and the faith of Yahushai." Right, but it says what? These are those who kept the commandments of the Most High, which who is it talking about there? It was talking about the elect, right? But the point of the matter is, it said these are those who keep the commandments. Which are the commandments? The commandments are the laws, the statutes, and the commandments. So there we go. In the last book of the Bible, it clearly makes a reference to those who are following the commandments in a good manner. Okay, it's very simple. So I think I'll end the video off with that. I think I brought out all the information that I wanted to bring out. And as I said, I brought up the verse earlier, 1 John chapter 3 and verse 4, "For sin is the transgression of the law." So, I'm very intrigued in seeing, how one could answer that for me. Very intrigued to see. If anybody thinks they can challenge me on that, you're free to hit us up in the comment section down below. Okay, but pretty much, that is going to conclude this lesson. I hope that was edifying. If anybody made it this far into the video, I want you to put hashtag commandment in the comment section down below, just to see if anybody made this far into the video. But anyway, with that being said, all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, for his truth, and I'm going to say shalom.